Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, Executive Editor at ClassicsToday.com, here in the Overflow Room, where we're going to be talking about the Karl Böhm box, or as we say here in the good old US of A, the boom box. Yes, it's a boom box. And before we talk about the boom box, let me put the boom box in its little spot over here. We need to point out that there have been 3 prior boom boxes. Of course, in German, the plural is Böhmbixer or something like that. Anyway, there have been 3 previous ones. One was Symphonies, which had like his Mozart cycle and his Brahms cycle and his Beethoven cycle, you know, that stuff. And then there were 2 others, which have these come in these smaller boxes of doom, where if you try and take them down from the shelf, then you're going to kill yourself. One is Karl Böhm, the late recordings, Vienna, London, and Dresden. And this has, 23 CDs. And then there's this one here. Here we go. Karl Böhm, great recordings, 1953 to 1972. Oh, I love it when they do this to themselves and labels shoot themselves in the foot. I mean, if you have the great recordings and they were made between 1953 and 1972, why on earth would you want anything made after 1972 or recorded before 1953? Moreover, why would you want the late recordings? Or, depending on when they were done, why would you want the symphony box? Because these are only the great recordings, and it's rather fascinating. For example, the great recordings, is this the one with the great oh yeah. The great recordings from this period includes, for example, none of his Mozart, none of his proper Brahms cycle with the Vienna Phil. The earlier ones are in here. Yeah, I mean, what a dumb thing to do. Holy cow, I love it when they do stupid things. And it's such a regular occurrence. You know, it really is. So, I mean, I don't have to wait very long. So, yeah, if you have these plus the other one, you're going to wind up with 60 some odd CDs. And it just so happens that this thing has, I don't know, I think 60 some odd CDs, doesn't it? Does it tell you? Well, you know, why should they? I mean, really, who wants to know? Now, wait a minute. I'll look at the booklet. This is not in a box of doom, as you can see. Fortunately, you can actually get the stuff out here without killing yourself if you're careful. You can grab it. Okay, wait a minute. So here we have 34, 58, 65. Well, then there are the interviews. I mean, with the interviews, there are 67 CDs. But if you take out the interviews, there's like 3 less, because there's like 3 discs of interviews or something. And in German, so, you know. And therefore, you don't need this. Now, I have to confess, I have not gone through all 3 boxes to see if they're all identical, because the symphony box is in Brooklyn, and these 2 boxes are here in the overflow room. So, you know, I'm not going through disc by disc to see if there's like maybe the 1 disc in here that you didn't get in there. That would be just silly, wouldn't it? So I'm just pointing out, we have the booklet here. We're going through the booklet, so I don't have to take all these suckers out of the box. But here they are, rather nicely packaged. This is a decent Deutsche Grammophon box, not a stupid Deutsche Grammophon box like their complete new, essential, irredeemable Beethoven edition thing that we just talked about, which is the dumbest box they've ever released. But no, this is sensibly done. It is really the companion to the vocal and opera recordings box, which it really, I think, frankly, you know, between you and me and the lamppost, my colleague reviewed this big box, this box here, this thing, for ClassicsToday.com. If you're an insider, I recommend you that you go and look at that review too, because it's extremely comprehensive, as is Jed's wont, and quite useful. And we agree about just about everything anyway, so it's fine. But, you know, Jed pointed out, and in passing, that he feels that Böhm's best work was done probably in the opera house, and I agree with that. I really do. I mean, good as he was, and he was very, very good. We're going to see some great stuff in here. I really think he did his best work as an opera conductor. His Ring, which was spectacular. His Tristan and Isolde. Whoa! With Vickers and Nielsen. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that, does it? His Mozart operas are spectacular. I mean, that's really what he did. Richard Strauss. And, of course, his Berg, the Wozzeck, which was the one we all grew up on. You know, those of us who already have grown up. You new folks have many more options. But back in the day, if you wanted Wozzeck and Lulu, not the complete Lulu, before the Boulez came out, there was Karl Böhm. And he was very, very good. So you know, I don't want to take away from the virtues of this box, but when you consider the fact that all of this material was previously released, and some of you may have it, and the fact that he did his best work in opera, and that makes this a proposition for hardcore Böhm boxers. You know, normal people, if you have some of his stuff, for example, the Mozart Symphony cycle and perhaps his Beethoven cycle, you're in good shape. You're in good shape. You don't need this box. I think Deutsche Grammophon, like I said, really kind of, you know, didn't help itself by handling things this way. There seems to be, it seems to be a many-tentacled entity, and the left tentacle doesn't know what the other 7 tentacles are doing. And so their suckers get stuck to, well, I'm pushing that analogy too far, aren't I? But really, it's an issue. It's a real issue. So unless you don't have any of this stuff, this isn't a box that you're going to need. But let's go through it anyway, and let's talk about what's in here, because it's fun. Because that's what we do, right? Let's see. Here we are. Oh, let's see. Okay, so what do you get? You get CDs 1 through 5. Of course, the Beethoven Symphonies. Naturally, it's the Beethoven Symphonies. And there are also some overtures thrown in here, but I don't know if they're on these. No, not on these discs. The highlight of this Beethoven cycle, Böhm always did some pretty good Beethoven, but there were some things he didn't do well. Now, the 6th, for example, that Pastoral of Vienna is famous. It's gorgeous. His 7th was always stiff and fusty and kind of dull. I don't know why. It just wasn't a piece that he could get. His Eroica could be good, could be a little, you know, heavily Teutonic, shall we say. But the highlight of this cycle is the 9th, which is fabulous. One of the great ones of all time, with the Vienna Phil, with Gwyneth Jones, Tatiana Troyanos, Jess Thomas, Carl Ritterbusch. I mean, you know, it's fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. So good for him. And you probably already have it, but that's okay. Then we get some sort of like spare Beethovens. There was the Eroica with the Coriolan with the Berlin Phil, which I don't know if it's better than his Vienna one. It was from 58 or 61. I guess, therefore, it qualifies as one of the great Böhm recordings, as opposed to these sucky Böhm recordings. I just love it that they did that to themselves. Those unbelievable fools. It's incredible. And then there's another 5 and 7 with Berlin. 5 is good, 7, not so much. And then there was a very, very late, I mean, it was like posthumous almost, performance of the 9th. And it's just tedious. It's really, really slow and really heavy, but it has some cast. Jesse Norman, Brigitte Fassbender, Placido Domingo, Walter Berry. Again, with the Vienna Phil, you don't need it. You really don't need it. Next, Beethoven Overtures. Well, they're overture-like. Then we get piano concertos 3 and 4 with Pollini. They're quite good. Or the Vienna Philharmonic. Number 5 with Pollini as well. Yeah, what's not to like? Probably, as Jed pointed out, and he's the piano guru, some of Pollini's best Beethoven concerto playing, and I think that the combination worked quite well. Then we have the Brahms Symphonies. Now, the Brahms Symphonies are, well, there's the cycle with the Vienna Phil. Now, as Brahms, I find Brahms to be rather heavy, and a little bit on the I don't know. It's not dull. It's beautifully played, but it's extremely deliberately planned, shall we say. But one thing I will give him credit for, he gets the 3rd. He's one of those conductors who doesn't blow the 3rd symphony, and good for him. But it's not a happy Brahms cycle. I don't know. There's something about it that's just maybe a little bit too serious, too heavy-duty. That's me. Others, we've talked about these in talking about, you know, the best Brahms symphony cycles. And some of you love this cycle. And I can't deny its virtues. But for me, it's just not not the best thing out there. I like my Brahms with a little more lift, shall we say. But then there's a really good Brahms one with the Berlin Phil from 59. It's one of the great ones. The great Böhm ones, anyway. And number 2 as well. And Max Reger's interminably awful Variations in Fugue on a Theme by Mozart. Oh, what a terrible piece that is. You know, Reger wrote those in the Hiller Variations. They're just not good. I mean, they're interminable. They really are not well orchestrated and heavy duty. Again, like the Brahms. Maybe they go well with the Böhm Brahms. Anyway, Reger did write some lovely orchestral music. He really did. I am not coming off as an anti-Regerian. I think the 4 Buckland tone poems are wonderful. There's some beautiful, beautiful music by Reger, but his variation sets they're Kapellmeister music. I mean, they really are. I think that's how they boil down. Pedagogical. Then we get the Brahms First Piano Concerto with Pellini, which is fine. And then we have some very, very good performances of symphonies by Bruckner. And there are no barnyard animals here because Böhm was a very good Bruckner conductor. The 7th is lovely, and the 8th. Now, the 8th is kind of interesting because he made his own sort of cuts in the finale, an extra 1 or 2. Some people object to that. It's probably why the performance has never quite gotten the credit it deserves. He did some live versions of the 8th that were just insane. Really, really fun. One of them was issued on Palexa. Remember that label? And it was very, very exciting. But this is a good 8th, too, if you don't mind the little cuts here and there. A little nipping and tucking. I'll let you figure out where they are, because if you get the box, you're stuck with it anyway. His Haydn was surprisingly good. Traditional big band Haydn, but lively and elegant and beautifully done. And you get symphonies 88, 89, 90, which was very, very rare at the time he recorded it, 91, 92, the Symphony Concertante, the Sinfonia Concertante, whatever you want to call it, all with the Vienna Phil. They're very, very surprisingly decent. So was his performance of the Seasons, which is in the vocal music box. Very, very happy, a happy marriage there. Then, oh dear, you get the Mozart symphonies on the Blu-ray disc with all of them, but also CDs 22 through 31. Now, let's say once again that Böhm's Mozart was excellent. It was always excellent. It was very, very beautifully played. It is modern Mozart. Some people talk about it only in negative terms as being too heavy, too this, too that. You can't say those things. You just can't. I mean, they are serious performances of what he considered to be great music, and the modern performance style being slow and thick and string weighted, and it's all of those things. But beautiful playing is beautiful playing, and if it sounds too heavy to you, too bad for you. That's all I can tell you. They are lovely performances. They really are. And he remade some of them. These were done with the Berlin Phil. He remade some of them in Vienna, and the remakes are not as good. They are not terrible, of course, but the earlier ones are better. And then, later on he did, 29, 35, Masonic Funeral Music, 38, 39, and 40 and 41. Again. We don't need them again, and he didn't need to do them again. So there. Then there are all the Serenades and the Wind Concerti and things he did. Those were wonderful performances, and they still are. They've held up extremely well. The Posthorn Serenade is enormously captivating, particularly. It's a wonderful performance by any standard, early, modern, or future. Just terrific. Okay, Schubert. You get some Rosamunde music with the Berlin Phil. And then the Mozart Grand Partita. Oh, I love that performance too. It's with the winds of the Berlin Philharmonic. I like just about every recording of the Grand Partita I've ever heard. I mean, you really have to work to screw that one up, don't you think? It's just such a miraculous piece of music, and it always just sounds fantastic. And we get more Eine kleine Nachtmusiks and Serenades. And I'll hear all the Wind Concerti. That was really fun. And let's see, now we get some piano concerti, more with Maurizio Pollini, 23 and 19, very, very well done. 27, and the 2 piano concerto with Emil and Elena Gilels, I mean, people want these things for Gilels. And of course, there was a Gilels box, so you probably already have it in there. And then very, very good performances of Peter and the Wolf and Carnival of the Animals, both in German and in English, surprisingly. Now, I happen to really dislike the Ogden Nash narration for the Carnival of the Animals. In this case, it's spoken by Hermione Gingold. You know, and you have to sort of like Hermione Gingold. I liked her in A Little Night Music. You know, liaisons, what happened to them? Liaisons today, disgraceful. Some of them barely pay their shoddy way. She was great in that, but for not for the Carnival of the Animals. Sorry, Hermione, but I don't care. Böhm does a really fine job with these performances. They're lively and delightful, absolutely delightful. And Schubert symphonies, Böhm's Schubert symphonies were beautiful, absolutely beautiful, and lively, and intelligent, and full of vigor and poetry. They were marvelous. And, you know, he did the Ninth twice, once with the Vienna Phil as part of his normative Schuberts, which were, yeah, it's Vienna, right? Yeah, tell me it's Vienna. Tell me it's wrong. No, it's Berlin. It's Vienna. It's Berlin. It's Berlin. I never get those two right. They all sound the same anyway. No, I'm just kidding. You'll shoot me if I actually said that. But then he remade the Ninth with the Staatskapelle Dresden. That's fabulous. It's in 1979. It's in the late recordings, you see? But it should have been... Oh, I'm having a disaster. It should have been with the great recordings, because it is a great recording, and it's just really, really exciting and all over the place. So much fun. The recording, it's a radio recording. It's a little tinny sounding. Who cares? And then we have another version of the unfinished with the Dvorak New World Symphony. The New World with the Wiener filler is nothing special. Nothing special at all. And then let's see, Schumann Fourth and another Schubert Fifth with Vienna, and Strauss waltzes and those things, which, I mean, lots of people have done better Strauss waltzes. I mean, they don't suck. It's with Vienna Phil. Who cares? And then we have Richard Strauss. The Alpine Symphony in mono, which has been surpassed. Don Juan, which is pretty good. It's quick and exciting, and it's 17 minutes, which is, you know, generally speaking, on the fast side. It's what a lot of these people did. Till Eulenspiegel and Zarathustra, which I've never liked, his performance. I think it's kind of stiff and unsexy. And then there's the Festliches Preludium. And, oh, look at this. Another Don Juan. This is with Berlin. It's a little slower. Another Till Eulenspiegel, a little slower. You know, again, the earlier ones I mentioned were with the Staatskapelle Dresden, the Don Juan and the Eulenspiegel, and I liked them better than the Berlin ones. I have to say, Böhm's Strauss tone poems were always, it's ironic because he was so good in the operas, but the tone poems, they're just a little bit staid. They really are. I mean, that's the whole criticism of Böhm, was that he was a little bit staid and, you know, just stiff and unsmiling. And sometimes he just was. He really was. And, you know, you have to just sort of deal with that because the good stuff is really, really good. And then we have, let's see, Death and Transfiguration and Heldenleben with the Staatskapelle Dresden. The Heldenleben also is mono, and the Death and Transfiguration is stereo. And let's see, and then there's another Heldenleben, oh my, with Vienna and Salome's Dance and the Rosenkavalier Waltzes from Act 3, and we're already at CD 60. So the cavalry is charging up the hill. Okay. Late in his life, he did Tchaikovsky 4, 5, and 6. And as I've said in certain other contexts, you know, when German conductors do Tchaikovsky late, you know, as opposed to like Karajan, who did it, you know, when he was still an adolescent, they sort of treat Tchaikovsky as a sort of prurient interest. You know, it's if they're slumming because they've got this composer who's outwardly emotional and whose formal, you know, expertise sort of yields to his gift for writing unbelievably fabulous melodies and colorful orchestration. And so the Germans can either really excel or really bomb. And Böhm bombs in numbers 5 and 6 and excels in number 4. Fourth is a really fine performance. 5 and 6, much less so. They don't suck, but they're not, you know, it's not it doesn't make a lot of sense to do a performance that's theoretically high on formal integrity and organic coherence when the music itself doesn't have those qualities. You know, that's the problem. I mean, it's not like Tchaikovsky was formally inept. It's just that the balance of elements in his music is different. It's just different. And Böhm doesn't quite get it. He was very old then anyway, so he was getting slower by the minute, and that was the problem. So we end with the Pathetique. Then there's some Wagner bits. Again, I would much rather hear the complete operas than the bits, but they're good bits. They're the Vienna Phil. They're decent bits. It's Rienzi, Tannhäuser Overtures, Meistersinger Prelude, Parsifal Prelude, Flying Dutchman Overture, Lohengrin Preludes to Acts 1 and 3, the Tristan and Isolde Prelude and Liebestod, and then Karl Böhm rehearsing the Schubert Ninth, which begins with Guten Morgen, meine Herren. Well, his German is excellent, that I can tell you. And then there's him talking about Mozart, and then he talks about his relationship with the Vienna Philharmonic and the terrible time that he stole their cell phone and saw that they'd been chatting with another guy, or never mind. And let's see. And then there was his own story retold about his musical life and career, and that is The Boombox. And, you know, it is what it is. These are very well-known recordings for the most part. Like I said, and as you can tell, there's a good bit of duplication. There's duplication both of previous boxes, and there's duplication of repertoire within the big box. And so, like as with all these boxes, they're collector's editions. And hardcore collectors will want them, but people who are setting out on their record collecting lives, I can't honestly recommend this, offhand. You'll know if you think you're going to listen to it. But if you're just going to stick it on a shelf somewhere and not pay any attention, don't waste the money. There are so many other big boxes, by other people that have the same music in it that's done as well, if not better. Invest the money in the Böhm Opera Box. That is a much better deal. You'll get a more consistent level of quality. You'll get fabulous singing. And I think that in the long run, you'll be happier if you get your orchestral music elsewhere. And that's the way it is, unfortunately, for those of you who are big Böhm fanatics. But, that's the reality of the situation today. And I only deal in reality. So keep on listening, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. Get your stuff at the classicstoday.com merchandise store, which is open for business. And thank you for joining me. Take care.